My girlfriend chose her best friend over me. Then karma hit her. Her best friend started stealing from her, physically assaulted her, did drugs, and got her evicted from their apartment. Now my girlfriend is broke, jobless, and homeless. She is begging me to take her back. I feel so happy to see her like this. AITA for refusing. I'm 28M, who was dating Kelly 27F for 3 years, planning to propose with an engagement ring and a luxury vacation. However, her best friend, Nat 27F, was always a problem. From the start, Nat disliked me and tried to break us up by falsely accusing me of cheating and convincing Kelly I was controlling. This caused many arguments, but Kelly always defended Nat. In January 2024, I reached my limit. We were celebrating my birthday, and Kelly invited Nat despite my objections. Nat dominated the conversation, talking about her financial issues. I asked Kelly to intervene, but when she tried, Nat accused her of not caring and then attacked me, calling me controlling. I lost my temper, calling her a manipulative bitch. Nat physically assaulted me, leaving bruises. The day was ruined, and back home, I gave Kelly an ultimatum. Either me or Nat. Kelly argued it was unfair to make her choose. We fought, and when Kelly said I provoked Nat by insulting her, I told her to leave. After threatening to call the cops, she finally left. I packed all of Kelly's belongings, including everything I had bought for her since she had lived off my money for 2 years. I texted her to pick up her things, and when she arrived, I handed them over without speaking. Later, Nat texted, calling me a jerk for keeping the gifts. Kelly also texted, calling me stingy. Angry, I sent her photos of the expensive engagement ring and vacation tickets I had bought to show what she missed out on because of Nat. Then, I blocked her. In September, Kelly showed up at my place looking awful and begged me to take her back. She admitted she had made a huge mistake. After we broke up, she got her own apartment but realized how manipulative Nat was. Nat kept guilt-tripping her into giving her money and eventually moved in with Kelly after getting evicted. Things got worse. Nat started using drugs, invited shady people over, and Kelly noticed cash and valuables, including her grandmother's necklace, were stolen. When she confronted Nat, Nat physically assaulted her, and 2 days later, Kelly was evicted because of Nat's behavior. Now homeless, jobless, and broke, Kelly apologized, saying she would do anything to get back together. I felt a sense of satisfaction and told her it was karma for choosing Nat over me. I asked her to leave, threatening to call the police if she didn't. Kelly told mutual friends, and they think I was too harsh given her situation. They suggest I apologize or even consider taking her back. Now I'm conflicted. Should I apologize to keep the peace with my friends, or am I justified in not taking her back or apologizing? AITA? Update 1. Thanks for all your opinions and suggestions. I've decided to talk to Kelly once and for all and tell her to leave me alone. I'm going to apologize for taking pleasure in her misery not to please my friends, but just because I want to get over with this as soon as possible. I've set up a meeting at a busy public place tomorrow. I also took the advice of my elder sister. I've always turned to her for advice. I'll update and let you guys know how the talk goes. I'm hoping to close this chapter of my life forever. Peace. Update 2. Hey guys, I'm back. I took some suggestions from the comments and met Kelly a few hours after writing the post. I realized by reading a few comments that I was in the wrong for holding my financial problems as a point of contention. I told Kelly that I was sorry for how I responded to hearing her struggles. I also said that I had struggled to come to terms with the fact she had chosen Nat over me. I said that it was not possible for us to get back together, but that I would help her for old time's sake. I've decided to help her with the rent for a small place for 6 months. I told her not to get her hopes up about getting back together. I also told her that if she got involved with Nat again, I would have no choice but to withdraw my support. She got really emotional and apologized for everything that happened and promised to stay away from Nat. She expressed her gratitude and told me that she'll respect my wishes this time. We parted on a good note with her thanking me for caring for her after everything she had done. A few mutual friends came to know about our talk a few minutes after we parted. Some called and chastised me for not taking her back. I was done with them at that point. I've cut the 3 of them who said that I was an entitled jerk for not taking her back. I'm hoping that this is the last update. I might update a few months later if anything develops, but hopefully Nat stays out of the way this time. My girlfriend went to an after-party with a coworker without me. Her coworker told me I wasn't invited. I suspect they are having an affair. Reddit AITA for breaking up. I 24 meters and my girlfriend 23 feet Anne began dating in college. Last week, Anne invited me to her coworker's Joe party. I had heard a lot about him in the past, and he and she really seemed to have a lot in common, especially with their taste in music. Apparently, he was an amateur musician with a fairly successful YouTube channel. Joe initially invited only Anne, but when she asked him if I could tag along, he said it was fine. The party was on Saturday evening. It was a fun party with about 30 people, held at a restaurant Joe had rented out. Towards the end, though, I wandered into Anne's little discussion group, and I immediately got the feeling that nobody really wanted me there. Most of all, Anne. It was her, Joe, and a few other people. Thinking that I was just imagining things, I hung around and listened to Joe basically boast about himself the whole time. A little while later, I wandered off to get myself a drink and chat with a few other people. Eventually, the time to leave came around, and I went to find Anne again. Joe approached me at that point and said that he was having an after-party over at his house. I was going to refuse, but then he said, "Sorry man, but only Anne is invited," while clapping me on the shoulder. I first told him not to touch me, and then said, "She's not going." He informed me that she had already accepted the invitation. I texted Anne immediately to ask where she was. She responded, "Sorry, on the way to Joe's place. I'll see you tomorrow, love you." I asked if she knew I wasn't invited, and she then left me on read. Texts after that were all ignored. I drove home furious. I stayed up all night, and finally Anne walked in the door at 5:42 a.m. I know because I was by the window watching. I recognized the car as Joe's and the driver as Joe. Nobody else was in the car. Anne waved to him cutely and laughed at something he said. Anne came inside and acted surprised to see me still up. At that point, I flatly told her that we were done, and she had the rest of the day to move out. Anne was at first confused with me, and then I told her that she can just move in with Joe. She rolled her eyes and said nothing happened. She gave me this spiel about my insecurities and imagination. I said it didn't matter. After this back and forward arguing, Anne finally relented and sarcastically thanked me for wasting the best years of her life. Anne finally moved out yesterday, and it was pretty dramatic. She said that she loved me and that I was throwing away everything over a party. Did I do her wrong here? I feel like I'm getting gaslighted. Update. About 2 weeks ago, I came here for moral guidance after breaking up with and kicking my girlfriend out for going to an after-party with her male coworker, who outwardly stated that I was not invited. Just about everyone in the post was convinced that Anne had cheated on me with Joe. The moment she left, I felt as if I had lost interest in her, Joe, and both of their lives forever. But a couple of days later, morbid curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to find his Instagram through Anne's. I don't know if I was looking for closure or validation for refusing to even discuss the issue with Anne, but I found both. First, a few hours after Joe drove Anne back to my place, he made an Instagram post about potentially doing a cover for Scotty Doesn't Know by Lustra. The comments were full of people saying he was going to hell with laughing, crying emojis and the shushing emoji. I recognized some of the commenters as people who had attended the party. At first, I didn't know what it was about, but after looking up the lyrics, it became clear. Here's the first line of the song. Scotty doesn't know that Fiona and me do it in my van every Sunday. So yeah, class act, he is. Catchy song though, but it gets better. I know this wasn't healthy, but I kind of kept up with Anne and Joe's social media. They went full mask off. Another few days later, Joe posted a picture of Anne sitting on his lap. I could tell that based on the sofa he was sitting on, this was not even taken at the after party, but at the party that I went to. I must have been talking to someone else or in the bathroom when it was taken. I will say that I was severely depressed and, on a certain level, probably still am. It wasn't even really about Anne, but that literally nobody from the party was willing to give me a heads up. Anne and I were publicly dating. We showed up together. People knew I was her boyfriend. But I guess when my back was turned, they were laughing at me. The only thing that doesn't make sense to me at this point is why she even wanted to keep me around as a partner. When I kicked her out, she was legitimately upset. Was this a pride issue where she wanted to be the one to dump me? Was it the thrill of screwing around with her coworker behind my back? Or was this some logic that only the human equivalent of a dumpster could understand? I may never know. My brother betrayed my mom by working for the man she hated the most. After she died, he is flipping out on not receiving 50% of inheritance. AITA for refusing his demands. My mom died a few months ago, and she left my brother 40-some money, but I 40-some got most of what she owned. Some background to explain why mom did this, and why my brother is angry. My mom was an only child for 16 years, and she always wanted to get involved in her dad's business. But he didn't want a woman taking over the family business. He was determined to have a son one way or another, and even though mom was prepared to leave school and work for him, by the time her brother came along, he made it very clear that even if there was no son, he would never let her work for him and take over one day. He would rather see the business close. This destroyed my mom. She loved her parents and felt so rejected. Mom's dad didn't get his way, however, because her brother wanted nothing to do with the business and refused to even work for him, let alone take over. My mom was estranged from her dad for many years because her dad made it painfully clear to her that he didn't value a daughter and never would, so mom stepped back. But when he heard mom had a son, he reached out, and when that didn't work, he waited until my brother was 18 and he offered him a job and the chance to run the family business. My mom was shocked, and my brother told her she better not tell him not to accept because he didn't like the fact she kept us from our grandfather and prevented him running the business with the estrangement. Mom and him had a talk. She said she did not want him to grow up with the same disregard for women as her dad. He basically told her to go and fuck herself, and he went to work for her dad. Years passed, and he regretted the strain between him and mom, and dad was disgusted with him too. He reached out after dad died and apologized and told mom he loved her. But things were never the same, and he talked about her dad like he was some amazing hero of a guy, which was so difficult for my mom. So apparently, when mom had her will made, she decided that I should get the most and my brother should get something, but not an equal share, given he had the business, and seemed perfectly okay with her being shut out of it for being born the wrong sex. My brother is hurt and angry about this now that she's gone. He asked me how she could have done this, and why I'm not angry. I told him he betrayed mom, so why would he get half? He tried to say he didn't, but I told him he went to work for her dad anyway, and then basically told her to go fuck herself, and even when they reconciled, he acted like the father who treated her like shit was some amazing person who needed his praises sang all the time. He said I was shitting on him for no real reason. AITA? My husband spends his entire day rating girls' boobs on Reddit and giving relationship advice to strangers. He doesn't help me in any of the household chores. Mother-in-law bullies me every day and my husband doesn't take my side. I am 5 months pregnant and I had enough. I am going to tell him about the divorce through the website he loves the most, Reddit. Have fun reading a Reddit post and realizing it was about you. Hi, Stefan. Maybe now you'll finally pay attention. Just so you know, you can't rush home to stop me from doing this. I'm sending you this after loading everything into the car and leaving. I've already spoken to the landlords, and my name is off the lease. I've set up next month's rent. But after that, it's on you. Wondering why? Acting surprised, as if you had no clue. I'm sure you'll play the role of the innocent husband and father-to-be. But let me break it down for you in terms you'll understand. I, 29F, have been married to my husband, 35M, for 5 years, and we've been together for nearly a decade. Outwardly, everything looked fine, but behind closed doors, it's been a nightmare. I'm done with it, but I need to know if I'm overreacting. From the start, his mother has been an absolute nightmare. She made everything about herself from day one. At our wedding, she even wore white, claiming it was a family tradition, which it wasn't. She constantly criticizes me, from my cooking to my appearance. She even called me fat at a family gathering once, right in front of everyone. And what did my husband do? Nothing. Not one word to defend me. The disrespect continued. She accidentally destroyed my personal items, including my late grandmother's necklace, which she tossed out because it looked cheap. Every effort I made to talk to my husband about it was dismissed. He'd tell me I was overreacting or getting too emotional. And then there's my husband himself. He spends most of his time on Reddit, dishing out relationship advice to strangers, which is ironic considering he barely speaks to me. He's got time to rate women's bodies on Reddit but forgets my birthday, our anniversary, even basic details about my life. Yet he can recall every detail about his work and his favorite Reddit threads. When we argue, he becomes condescending, always throwing in a sarcastic buddy, like I'm a stranger he can barely tolerate. He's no help around the house either. I'm responsible for everything: cleaning, dishes, laundry. It's as if he thinks adulting only applies to his job and Reddit account. A few weeks ago, I reached my breaking point. I'm 5 months pregnant with our first child, a little girl. His mother started making comments about how she'll toughen up our daughter because I'm too soft. When I told my husband that I didn't want his mother having such an influence on our child, he just laughed, saying his mother means well, and that I was overthinking it. But the real breaking point came when we discussed childcare. He suggested that his mother should watch our daughter while we worked. I expressed my concerns, given how she treats me, but he dismissed me as paranoid and told me to get over it. He insisted that his mother would be heavily involved in our daughter's life, no matter my opinion. This is the same woman who thinks corporal punishment is appropriate. I've watched her hit his nephew over minor things, and the whole family seems to think it's normal. If my husband wouldn't defend me, how could I expect him to defend our child? I started to worry about what kind of environment our daughter would grow up in. A home where she might be belittled or bullied by her grandmother, with a father who'd stand by and do nothing. Oh, and let's not forget how he missed our first ultrasound. His mother needed him for an urgent matter, which turned out to be fixing her Wi-Fi. He chose that over being there to see our daughter for the first time. That was all the proof I needed about my place in his life. So, I left. I've already reached out to a lawyer. No more threats can make me stay quiet because I have all the texts, and you know exactly which ones I'm talking about. So, Stefan, I wish you all the best with your future marriage, with your mother and your Reddit strangers who you'd rather give attention to. AITA for leaving my husband after years of neglect, letting his mother mistreat me, and fearing for our daughter's future. Quick update. Stefan saw this post, and he's furious because one of you tracked down his account based on the Rate My Boobs forum he frequented. He's since deleted his account. Just to clarify, I haven't shared any revealing details that could lead to doxing him. For the record, anyone claiming they know me or have information about me is lying. I'm not from South Carolina, I'm not moving in with anyone else, and I'm not sleeping around. My sister-in-law did a DNA test on my adopted child and bragged the results out on me, telling me I was raising someone's affair child. I laughed at her stupidity, but later found it was my brother who told her to do so, even though he knew the child was adopted. Now our entire family is cutting off my brother and sister-in-law. I'm a 30-year-old man with a 6-year-old daughter, Lily. There's no blood relation between us at all. I adopted her. Lily's mother was my best friend growing up. We were never romantically involved, just close friends. She eventually married and had Lily with her husband. But tragically, when Lily was only about 3 months old, both her parents were killed in a workplace shooting. It was an incredibly painful time, and because they had no family to take Lily in, I decided to adopt her. Although I hadn't been sure about kids at the time, I couldn't bear the idea of Lily growing up in foster care without any connection to her parents. Everyone in my family knows Lily is adopted, including Lily herself. I've always been open with her about it, in an age-appropriate way, explaining that her parents died because of a bad man. She doesn't know all the details yet, but she'll learn when she's older. Lily doesn't resemble me at all. She looks exactly like her biological parents. People often assume I'm her biological dad who just takes after her mom, and I usually don't correct them since it feels unnecessary. Now my brother has been with his fiancée, I'll call her sister-in-law, for about 2 years. A few weeks ago, we were at my parents' house, and sister-in-law saw an old picture of me, Lily's mom, and her dad. She pointed to Lily's mom and asked who she was. I explained that she was Lily's mother. Sister-in-law got quiet and stood in front of the picture for a while, which I found odd but didn't think much about. She knew Lily's mom had passed, but maybe didn't know she'd been married or that Lily was adopted. I guess she assumed Lily was biologically mine and my friend's daughter. Unbeknownst to me, sister-in-law decided to run a DNA test on Lily, using my brother's DNA. When the results came back showing no relation, she confronted me with them, waving the results in my face and accusing me of raising a dead woman's affair baby. She even did this in front of Lily. I just stared at her, processing the absurdity of it, then burst out laughing. The whole thing was too ridiculous. I told her I knew Lily wasn't my biological child and that it's called adoption. Her face turned red, and she stormed off. Now, my brother is mad at me for embarrassing his fiancée. I argued that she embarrassed herself by getting involved in something that wasn't her business, DNA testing a kid without permission, then confronting me about it as though it were some big reveal. What was she expecting? That I'd break down and abandon my daughter? My brother claims she thought she was doing the right thing and says I'm the one in the wrong. But to me, sister-in-law was the one who stuck her nose where it didn't belong. So, Reddit, am I the asshole? Update. My sister-in-law eventually came to my house to apologize and explain the full story. It turns out my brother was the one who put her up to the DNA test. Apparently, when I first adopted Lily, my brother assumed she was actually my biological daughter. He thought Lily's mom and I had been together and were just keeping it a secret. He believed that when she got pregnant, she told me Lily was mine, but claimed her husband was the father to avoid complications since I wasn't looking to have kids at the time. Sale had been led to think I believed Lily was my biological daughter. When she saw the old picture of me, Lily's mom, and her husband, she asked who the woman was, and I explained it was Lily's mom. She didn't realize that Lily was adopted, or that her biological father was also in the photo. So, when she noticed how much Lily resembled the other man, she grew suspicious. Unaware my brother had been feeding her lies for nearly 2 years, she assumed there was an affair. She decided to get the DNA test with my brother's help, thinking it would finally clear things up. My brother encouraged her, hoping to prove Lily was actually my biological daughter. Of course, when the results confirmed I wasn't related to Lily, he felt too embarrassed to confess he'd misled her. That's why SEL confronted me with the results the way she did. Sister-in-law also apologized for bringing the results up in front of Lily. She shared that her mom had an affair, got pregnant by another man, and allowed her father to believe the child was his. This betrayal left her resentful of anyone who might be in a similar situation, so she felt compelled to reveal the results. She had intended to talk to me privately, but got so upset upon seeing me with Lily that she lost her composure. Now sister-in-law feels terrible and is furious with my brother for lying to her. I understand why she acted the way she did, given her own experiences, so I've forgiven her. It looks like she might break up with my brother over this, which I understand. When I confronted my brother, he admitted everything. He couldn't fathom why I'd adopt a child without a biological connection, so he concocted this story about me having an affair with Lily's mom. He truly believed I was Lily's biological father, but I didn't want to take responsibility until her parents passed. For now, both my parents and I have decided to go low contact with my brother. I'll forgive him eventually, but it's tough to move past the fact that he saw me as someone who would betray a friend, abandon a child, and only step up when it was convenient. Husband cheated on me with his childhood best friend Megan. I exposed him at a family dinner. My father-in-law flipped out at me, saying that having an affair is normal and I'm making a big deal out of it. My mother-in-law sided with me, and later revealed that father-in-law cheated on her with 10 girls during their 50 years of marriage. He even had an affair with Megan's mom for months, and Megan is probably his affair child. That's why all the drama and defending her. Both me and mother-in-law have decided to divorce our husband. Cheating runs in the family. I, 29F, have been married to my husband, 31M, for 5 years. We've had a good relationship overall, but there's always been one issue. His girl best friend, Megan, 30F. She's been in his life since childhood, and while I've always felt a bit uneasy about their closeness, I trusted my husband and tried to be cool with it. Megan is always around. She's at our house constantly, they text all the time, and she even comes on family vacations with us. Every time I brought up how their friendship made me uncomfortable, my husband would brush it off, saying she's practically a sister and that I was overreacting. To make matters more complicated, my mother-in-law, 68F, is amazing. She's always had my back and has told me multiple times that if Megan made me uncomfortable, I should talk to my husband about setting boundaries. On the other hand, my father-in-law, 70 million, has a very different attitude. He adores Megan and has always said that she's part of the family and that I just need to deal with it. He thinks my discomfort with their friendship is just jealousy. Fast forward to 2 months ago. My husband started acting distant, coming home late, being secretive with his phone, and just off. I had a gut feeling something was wrong, so one night I went through his phone while he was in the shower. That's when I found out. He and Megan had been having an affair for months. I was absolutely crushed. I confronted him, and he admitted everything. He swore it was a mistake, said he loved me, and begged me not to leave him. I didn't know what to do, so I stayed quiet for a bit, trying to process everything. A couple of weeks later, my in-laws hosted a big family barbecue. I was still reeling from the affair, but my husband convinced me to come, saying we needed to keep up appearances while we worked things out. I went, but I was a wreck inside, especially knowing Megan would be there. Sure enough, Megan showed up like nothing had happened, acting all friendly with everyone, including me. I was boiling inside, but I kept it together. Then, during dinner, my father-in-law made some offhand comment about how Megan would always be part of the family and that I needed to get over my insecurities. He said this in front of everyone. That was my breaking point. I stood up, looked straight at him, and said, "You know what? I would get over it if she wasn't sleeping with my husband." The entire table went silent. Megan's face turned white, and my husband tried to calm me down, but I wasn't having it. I told everyone exactly what had been going on: the sneaking around, the lies, the betrayal. My mother-in-law was furious, but not at me. She laid into my husband and Megan, saying they destroyed our marriage and disrespected me. My father-in-law, though, had the audacity to say I was overreacting and that affairs happen, but I shouldn't have aired it out in front of the family. He even defended Megan, saying she made a mistake and we should all move on. I left the barbecue and have been staying with my mom ever since. My husband keeps begging me to come home, and my mother-in-law has been supportive, but my father-in-law is telling the whole family that I'm the one causing drama and blowing things out of proportion. AITA for exposing their affair in front of everyone at the barbecue? Should I have kept it private, or was I right to call them out after everything? Update 1. Me and mother-in-law are very close. Should I show her what you guys are saying about father-in-law possibly cheating and see if she wants to look into that? Their marriage has been very rocky and she has been wanting to get out of it, but he's been the breadwinner for years. Update 2. There are no kids involved. My soon-to-be ex-husband can't have kids. Not sure if this counts as a mini update. After seeing some of the comments about father-in-law maybe wanting to sleep with Megan, I asked MIL if there's something weird going on there, or if she knows if he's cheated before. They have been married for 50 years. He's cheated 10 times. One that you guys might find important is he slept with Megan's mother. Maybe that's why he loves her so much. As far as she knows, he didn't sleep with Megan. The other 8 were people he worked with, and one of them was an old high school friend. I will also be researching for a lawyer tomorrow morning. Update 3. Mother-in-law told father-in-law to get a DNA test with Megan, or she's divorcing him. He said he will try and schedule something tomorrow. I'm very glad I came to Reddit with this, or some stuff we are finding out wouldn't have came to light. If Megan is ex-husband's sister, that will be hilarious and would totally be their problem. Also, MIL is getting a divorce no matter what. But he doesn't know that yet. She just decided an hour ago. Yes, I will be helping her with a place to stay, and she wants to get into real estate with me, so I'll be trying to pull some strings and help her out in every way I possibly can. She has seen all the comments, and with Reddit and my support, it gave her the strength to leave. It's an unfortunate situation for the both of us, but I'm glad we are going through this together so we can have each other's support. When the DNA test results come back, if it for sure happens, she will be cutting off my ex-husband and father-in-law. I also wanted to say that father-in-law was sleeping with Megan's mother for maybe a month or 2. That's why Meal thinks the timelines add up. And yes, father-in-law knew about the affair that really boils my blood. He isn't even a decent enough human to tell me about it. If it was me or mother-in-law cheating, both father-in-law and ex-husband would be pissed. My spineless boyfriend treats me like a child. He never takes my side. I broke off with him because he let his best friend alter the Indian dish I spent 3 days to make, because it was not brown like Indians. My boyfriend, 28, M, and I, 22F, met at work 2 years ago. Technically, I was working part-time during undergrad and he was a customer, but after a couple of months, we started going out. I really love this man, and nothing has happened on this scale before, so I'm very confused about it. My boyfriend has a very tight group of friends. I am well acquainted with them, and their girlfriends. One of them, Dave, just is married to Ellie, fake names. Ellie is an excellent cook and often hosts dinners, and everyone brings a dessert to those dinners. I am the youngest in the group, so most times they brush off my requests for contributing or bringing in a dessert. However, The last time I asked Dave and Ellie if they wanted anything extra like wine or some sweet dish for dinner. They said I could bring one of those sweet dishes I make for my boyfriend. I'm Indian, and even though I can't cook as well as my mom, and I'm in a different country for studies, I called my mom up and had her teach me properly how to make a specific Bengali sweet, which is my favorite. I had my friends taste it and they said it was great. My boyfriend ate some and said it was excellent. Except last night, I greeted Ellie and kept the dish in the kitchen. When the food was brought out and my boyfriend told everyone I made it, I saw that someone had added cinnamon powder to the sweet. You never have the sweet with cinnamon powder. The dessert tasted like cinnamon and I felt horrible. Though everyone said thank you and it was good, I think my face gave it away, and my boyfriend took me aside and said that Ellie had told him that my sweet looked too white and thought some cinnamon might bring some color into it. I don't know. I just felt awful and I started to tear up. My boyfriend then defended Ellie and said that his friends already think I'm a child and not make a big deal of this and we will talk about it. I told him Ellie asked him first. Couldn't he have told her not to add cinnamon to the sweet? He told me he didn't think it was a big deal and asked me to drop the topic on the way home. I didn't text him goodnight, and this morning he said he was sorry and said my crying made him feel like an awful person. I don't know. Now I think I overreacted. AITA. Update. Ellie saw this post. My boyfriend texted me to see if it was me. I said yes. He said we needed to talk. For safety purposes, my best friend will be here. I don't know, I never expected my post to blow up. Update 2. He said he needed space from the relationship. I think with the way this post blew up and what happened because of a post, I should clear up some things. I never asked if I should leave my boyfriend for this. I asked if this was an overreaction, my crying. But having thousands of people tell me this was racially charged, Ellie wanted power, my BF is shitty, etc., my brain went haywire. BF called yesterday, and when I got there, his house, with my best friend, Dave and Ellie were there. Ellie was crying, and Dave looked really pissed at me. My BF told me to sit down, and Dave started with, how could I make a post that most of the people in the dinner party would recognize and know, and could shame Ellie and my BF? My boyfriend was silent, and wouldn't even look at me, and was only shaking his head. It felt like I was a kid, being scolded by my parents with my elder sibling disappointed in my actions. That is what I felt. And it looked. I admit, it was very spineless of me. But Dave went on for like a minute, and I was just looking at my BF waiting for him to defend me. I asked Ellie, why would she alter my dish, after telling me to bring an Indian dish? She said she thought Indian food would be brown. This woman has more Indian friends than me, and she thinks Indian food is brown. She grew up in the UK FFS, and I felt so defeated. The comments, my friends, and people around me telling me his friends came first to him, not me. He said he didn't think the sweet was a big deal. I told him I would never let my friend alter something he spent 3 days learning, getting people to taste it and got his mom involved in. He saw I put a lot of effort into it, so why let her alter it? Why couldn't he ask me? Ellie started to cry and say that she wasn't being racist and she wouldn't know that I put effort into it and now she couldn't host dinners again. I said I used fake names, so why does it matter? Unless she and Dave went around telling people. BF told me he didn't expect this from me. My best friend piped up that he expected that my BF would have a effing spine, so I guess they were both disappointed. My, now ex-BF told me, in front of Dave and Ellie, that he needs some space. I told him to get lost. I don't know what my best friend said to him after that, considering I left BF's flat. I kind of tripped in the metro station, so now I'm crying on my best friend's couch with an ice pack while his BF keeps giving me peach schnapps and my relationship has toppled over. I wouldn't have stormed out had he looked at me once. He just looked 100% on Dave and Ellie's side and acted like I was the one with the problem when she caused me hurt. If his friends come first when they cause me hurt, where would I have been if I decided to marry this man? My friends are good to me and are acting like I'm some fragile glass. I even heard my best friend and his brother whispering loudly from the kitchen and his elder brother wanting to threaten him via Insta DMs. I hate that this has come to this, considering I have always been the mom friend to my friend group. I'm drunk while writing this, so have some grace in the comments. Also, if you'll be an incel like those people in my DMs, telling me I'll never keep a man if I'm this dramatic, please go away. I just thought I needed to update, that's it. Thanks, guys. Edit. Guys, this is the first time I've faced what y'all have been calling racism. TBH. I didn't see Ellie putting cinnamon into my rosogola as racism. I was just hurt that my days of hard work was ruined. That's it. I understand I need to work on my self-esteem and not let people walk over me. My best friend's elder brother, he's a doctor and is super pissed at my ex right now because he didn't know what happened. Booked an appointment with a therapist he knows, as he thinks I need mental help to not normalize aggressive behavior. I'm sorry for ranting on Reddit, but I guess that's where I am. Both my best friend and I will be going. He had been there for some time before. And the situation is tense at home because Dada, Bestie's brother, didn't know what was happening and tore my friends a new one for not protesting when Dave said shit to me. I still haven't told him it was over a Reddit post and that I'm writing here. I feel awful and I don't know how to tell my mom she was right. I wish I never went out with him. One of my ex's friends, from the dinner party, asked me if I really left my ex over a dessert, so I guess that's what he told people. It hurts. I know it shouldn't, but it hurts. I think it is partially my fault. I shouldn't have let myself be treated like this. There were signs and I ignored them, and now I think I'll never have another relationship because it feels like a horrible, anxious feeling. My mother had the audacity to bring my ex-girlfriend to my wedding, so I kicked them both out of the wedding. She hates my wife and always wanted me to marry my ex. My entire family is taking her side. AITA. I am 30, started seeing June F29 about 3 years ago. My mother has never really liked June for a couple reasons, the main one being the fact that June didn't let my mom push her around. She kept firm boundaries, which I really admired, and she even helped me do the same. My mom hated this, calling June controlling and wishing I hadn't broken up with my previous girlfriend Margot, who my mom loved. I was with Margot for 5 years, and it was horrible. Margot was very controlling and manipulative and always guilted me into things I wasn't comfortable with. But thanks to support from friends and my sister, I was able to leave her. It was hard, but I had help and my life has improved since. My mom was very upset with this, but relationships didn't last, so she eventually let it go until I started dating June about a year later. When June and I announced our engagement, my mom didn't freak out, which was weird considering my mom hates June. She was very calm, but I just took it as she was finally accepting this, and so I didn't think much of it. Everything was fine and smooth up until the wedding. I gave both my parents +1s to the wedding since they both remarried after I graduated college. So I'm not close to their spouses, but gave them the option of inviting them. We had a very small ceremony, just immediate family and a few close friends. After the ceremony, me and June went to take pictures and then met back with everyone we invited to the reception, which was pretty big. When we got there, my sister and June's best friend maid of honor ran up to us in a panic. Before they even said anything, I spotted it. My mom was at the table with my dad, my dad's wife, and Margot. I wanted to freak, but June kept me calm. I walked over, pulled them both aside, and simply told them to leave. My mom tried to explain Margot and I are soulmates, and June is just in the way of true love. But I wasn't hearing it. I didn't care. Just got my best friends to escort them out, and I returned to the party where luckily, after a few moments, I was able to relax and enjoy it. I really didn't think this would all turn into something huge, but me and June just got back from our honeymoon where we didn't have our phones, and seeing mine, I saw hundreds of texts from multiple family members. They all think I was an asshole for kicking my mom out of her only son's wedding. For the record, she was there for the ceremony, but apparently was really upset she was kicked from the reception. Here's a summary of my family's thoughts. Some think I could have just ignored Margot and didn't have to freak out. A few others, including my dad, think I should have just kicked Margot and let my mom stay, but after the stunt my mom pulled, I didn't want her there either. I'm starting to second-guess myself since everyone is really mad. June and my sister are on my side, but I fear my dad may be right and I should have just let my mom stay and made Margot leave. So I've come to Reddit AITA. My narcissist and controlling wife thinks she is superior to me. She does not work, stays at home, and demands me to do household chores after work. She always blames me for anything that goes wrong and never takes my side. I had an accident and she told me it's my fault. I told her my life would be better without her. She stormed off and is texting me continuously, demanding me to apologize. I can't take it anymore. I'm going to divorce her. AITA. My wife Anne and I have been married for 13 years. I am 43 and she is 46. We do not have children. When we first began dating, nobody could make me happy like Anne. She always seemed to know exactly the right thing to say to me when I was down. But over the past decade or so, she has really started to show her true colors, and a lot of what her ex-husband said to me about her has begun to make more sense. For example, I have a very high-stress job. People bring me problems, and I fix those problems. But when I get home, 9 times out of 10, Anne just has more problems to throw onto my plate. She doesn't work, so she's free to do anything she wants to solve said problems during the day, but lately she has even begun making lists of things that she wants me to do after I work all day. But my biggest issue with Anne is that I can't ever really open up to her about anything. Whenever I talk about something bad that happened to me, she'll either try to one-up me or agree with the person who wronged me. Last Friday, I had a horrible day. There was an enormous problem at work that basically all fell on my shoulders to solve. When I was crossing the street after work, I had a green signal, and a bicycle blew through a red and side-clipped me. The cyclist yelled expletives at me and then rode away. I thought about calling the police because it was technically a hit and run, but there was probably nothing they could do. When I got home, desperate, I talked to Anne about what happened. She listened, and then immediately took the cyclist's side. I reiterated that the cyclist ran through a red light, to which she responded that cyclists aren't obligated to stop. When I told her she was wrong and tried to put the issue to rest, she began frantically Googling laws. She found that in our state, they can treat lights like a stop sign. She began triumphantly reading the law to me loudly, word for word, getting louder when I kept trying to tell her that I wasn't interested. At the end of her spiel, she gave me this incredibly arrogant look as if she was right. I just stared at her for a second and said that my life would be better without her. She got incredibly upset, shrieked at me until her voice was hoarse, and then packed a bag and left to stay with her parents. She has texted me all weekend demanding an apology, but I haven't responded. Did I do something unforgivable here? Update. 2 weeks ago, I had an argument with my wife, Anne. This argument stemmed from Anne's incessant need to contradict me and everything I say. Anne left in a fit of rage to stay with her parents, and then kept spamming me with texts demanding an apology. A few days after Anne left, I felt something I hadn't in a long time at home. Peace. I didn't have someone nagging me about literally everything I did. I didn't have to eat my meals in the correct order, something about pH balance that she probably saw from some brain rot creator on TikTok. I didn't have to wash my feet after getting home. I could actually enjoy myself, which is impossible when Anne is around because I found many years ago that she tends to get the most aggressive when I seem like I'm either in a very good or very bad mood. I then did something I never thought I'd do. I reached out to her ex. He was more than eager to talk about Anne and her shenanigans, so we met up for drinks. He and I both had near-identical experiences with her. Anne is, through and through, a pretty horrible person, especially to her romantic partners. He cited irreconcilable differences for divorcing her, where it was no specific event, but just a long list of terrible interactions and coming to the realization that he detested her as a person. During this time, Anne went silent on me. I used this lull in our relationship to visit a lawyer, who told me that due to the nature of laws in our state and the fact that Anne is able-bodied and educated, the chances of me ever having to pay alimony are basically zero. I called Anne at that point. She, for some reason, still expected an apology. I told her that I wanted a divorce. She threatened to take everything from me. I said she could try, but any further contact should be done through my lawyer. I'm fully happy to split our assets fairly. I'm fairly sure that Anne will agree to any deal that gives her more than half. It's just the way she is. And if it's a 55-45 split, I don't care. All I'll have to do is act like she got the better of me, and since she's an idiot, she'll happily agree. My boyfriend got into a terrible road accident. I refused to help him because of a deal we made. AITA. My boyfriend was in a car accident. He broke his left leg, ankle, and forearm, and he'll be out of commission for at least 9 months. Overall, he's okay, and I'm glad and thankful for it. So why aren't you helping him? Because I said I wouldn't, and I'm sticking to my guns, but it's getting harder to do so every day. You see, my boyfriend is a reckless driver. He eats, drinks, not alcohol, doesn't like beer or spirits, and is always on his cell phone whenever he's driving. It's been a point of contention ever since I met him to point that I've either taken the wheel or left him and taken an Uber home because I didn't felt safe. Ironically, he's never been stopped or gotten a ticket over it, so why did you said you weren't going to help him? About 3 months ago, we were coming back from a weekend getaway, and while he was driving, he was watching a race on cell phone. A race. I offered to take the wheel so he could enjoy it, but said no. We got into a huge fight, and it ended when I said that if he were to get into an accident, no matter how bad, I wouldn't help him. He got quiet, and we made it back home safely. Fast forward 9 weeks later, he has an accident, a big one. He lost control and rolled over hitting a tree right on the driver's side. He spent 2 weeks in the hospital and was discharged a few days ago. During his time in the hospital, he confessed to me that he was distracted by his cell phone, which wasn't surprising. Since he lives by himself, it's been quite difficult to go on with his life. I visit him, but I don't help him, and while it does hurt me, I am standing firm with my promise. He got himself into this situation. Why should I have to pay for it? On top of that, his family is all over me, and quite displeased that I am not over there. Since all of them live miles away from where he is, they can't be there to help him. My boyfriend is understandably angry with me, but I can't bring myself to be there for him even after all the warning I told him. So here I am, asking if AITA here, and if I am, I'll bring myself around and be there for him. AITA here? Should I help my injured boyfriend after all of this? I was drugged and roped by my uncle. He planned it for a very long time. Initially, everyone in the family cut off ties with him. Now, he is back in the family within 6 months and acting like nothing happened and got close with everyone except my mother. AITA for cutting off ties with my family and putting my mother in a bad position with rest of the family members. I-26F was drugged and sexually assaulted, raped by my uncle 47M after a wedding when I was 20. Backstory, my mom's half-brother, Mike, was like a father figure to me my whole life. Always kind, caring, and loving towards me, took me multi-night hikes, skiing trips, etc. He was who I called before signing up for classes, first job interview, etc. Behind closed doors, my home life was a fucking Dateline-worthy nightmare. Story for another day. So it felt good to have someone in my corner. Mike never, ever, ever made me feel unsafe, sexualized, preyed upon, etc. Flash forward, I'm 20 years old and just broke up with my long-term boyfriend. I was down in the dumps. Mike called me and said his college friends were getting married. My aunt, Mike's wife, couldn't make the wedding. She's a homebody with 2 toddlers. He asked if I wanted to go instead to hang out with him over the weekend. His friends were all getting together to go sailing, to the beach, etc. He said he had a hotel room with a pull-out couch so I could stay with him. He had already bought the plane ticket and didn't want it to go to waste. I didn't think anything of it and said yes. In hindsight, internet strangers might think that's weird, which is why I gave the backstory. He took me places all the time. Wasn't a red flag to me. I flew down that weekend and caught the tail end of the reception after party. It was casual, nothing weird. He brought me 3 to 4 drinks over the course of like 4 hours, and the next thing I know, I wake up naked in bed, unable to physically move, drifting in and out of consciousness, and he's trying to have sex with me. The next morning, this incestuous excuse of man starts going on and on about how it was the best experience of his life, that it's a shame I can't remember what a good time I had, how he had been waiting years for this night, how he can't wait to spend the rest of the weekend with me. Scum of the fucking earth. Oh, and he makes me take Plan B. It's worth mentioning that he folded my clothes from the night before and laid them out like a goddamn display. Fucking psycho. I'm full-blown panic mode and don't know what to do. Plus, still a bit loopy. I ask him if he can get me a toothbrush from the reception, and when he leaves, I flee for dear life. No idea where I'm at, so I Uber to the airport, call the police. They go to the airport and I file a report. The police told me it would be my word against his, and that it was weird that I got a hotel room with my uncle. They handed me a crisis hotline number and wished me luck. I was putting myself through college, poor as hell, and didn't have enough money to fly home early. A construction worker saw me crying at the Delta counter and paid for my plane ticket home. He didn't speak English and refused to give me his info to pay him back. I decided right then and there that good things can still happen to me. Mike stole an entire day from me, but he doesn't get to steal my entire life. I got home, got therapy, got my master's degree, got out of the trailer park, and got on with my life. I own a 7-figure business, have been happily married for 3 years to the most amazing, and I think about that construction worker daily. Happy ending. Mostly, I still had to deal with the aftermath of this event. All I wanted was me never having to see Mike, interact with him, or deal with him ever again, and for this information to not be spread around unnecessarily. I called one of my other uncles, Alan, whom I trusted, Mike's older brother by 18 years, and told him what happened. Alan was livid. We ride at dawn, kind of livid. He called Mike, and Mike confessed. However, Mike blamed the alcohol and said we were both just too drunk. No one gets drunk, tried to fuck a family member, and wakes up boasting about how they planned it for multiple years. Alan tells Mike to get right with God and not to come within 200 miles or speak to any of our family members ever again or else. 6 months later, everyone is back to being one big happy family and invited Mike to Thanksgiving dinner? I confronted Alan, and he apologized and said he felt distraught that the family had been torn apart and wasn't thinking clearly. He called Mike and uninvited him. Recently, I found out that everyone, except for my mom, is still buddy-buddy with Mike, and that everyone knows what happened. Some drunk ex-GF of my cousin texted me saying my family is shitty and that everyone is talking about how I fucked my uncle. And now I have the rage of a scorned woman. The rage in me says that I should stay the fuck away from these worthless hillbilly rednecks who are condoning incest and rape. If I'm honest with myself, my family has quite literally only caused pain and suffering. But I felt like some family is better than no family until now. I haven't spoken to anyone, returned texts, calls, nothing. The emotionally intelligent side of me seems to think I should put aside my feelings about the family, still including Mike, to try not to take it personally, and to try to have some empathy for the other family members. Mike is still their family. I get it. My Southern Bible Belt Baptist family likely didn't want to come to terms with the news. God wouldn't let that happen. Or, God will teach a lesson, work a miracle, etc. through this. That's typically their stance on sensitive matters. A lot of them, if not most of them, have existing substance abuse issues and also had shitty stuff happen to them. We just don't talk about these things since it's not proper. My biggest conundrum is that I feel so bad that my mom knows about this, and I don't want to make things hard on her since she is really involved with the family. Except for Mike, of course. I have a great relationship with her, see her frequently, and talk to her every day. I can hear that suppressed sadness in her voice when I say I'm not going to XYZ family event. So now I fucking guilty and like I'm being dramatic about the whole ordeal. AITA for cutting ties? Please be kind. It's been a long 5 years. I'm doing the best I can. I was friends with benefits with a guy when I was 19. Recently I found out that my sister was getting married to the same person. I told her that guy was a red flag and told her about our hookups. Initially she was devastated and called off the engagement. But now, they are back together, and my sister is accusing me of sabotaging her marriage. My family has cut me off and calling me slut. AITA for warning my sister? I 19F come from a super religious family where everyone marries fast through matchmakers. I'm the black sheep because I left religion and started dating casually. My sister Marie, 25F, is the family favorite, beautiful, smart, outgoing, but she struggled to find a husband. After a string of failed matches, she finally got engaged last month to Christopher, 30M. Everyone was relieved because she'd been trying for so long. I was happy for her until I met the fiancé. Christopher and I hooked up last year. For context, the age gap between us isn't the issue, so please don't bring it up. We met at a party, and despite being religious, he's divorced and didn't seem concerned about staying pure. We hooked up 5 times. He was my first everything. Kiss, hook up, all of it. After the 5th time, he said he was falling for me, but I wasn't looking for anything serious, so I ended things before it got too complicated. Especially because I knew he wanted to eventually get remarried, and I was not the girl for that. We hadn't seen each other since, until Marie brought him home as her fiancé. The second we locked eyes, I knew we were both thinking, oh shit. Later that night, Christopher pulled me aside, begging me not to tell Marie. He said it meant nothing, it was in the past, and telling her would only ruin her happiness. He texted and called me for a week, saying how much Marie had been through and how I'd destroy her life if I told her. I kept my mouth shut at first. I didn't want to hurt her. But the guilt was eating me alive, like I was watching her walk into a disaster. I felt like she deserved to know. So, I told her. At first, Marie didn't believe me. She said I was trying to sabotage her happiness because I couldn't stand being single. I had to show her the texts and photos to prove it. When she finally accepted the truth, she lost it. She confronted Christopher, and he denied everything, until she shoved the evidence in his face. Marie called off the engagement. That's when things really hit the fan. My parents and some relatives told me I should have kept quiet. They said I'd ruined Marie's one shot at happiness and called me selfish for interfering. Now I'm not even invited to the wedding. Yep, they got back together, but I'll get to that. It gets worse. While Marie and Christopher were dating, he randomly called me, saying he wanted to reconnect. He was rather vague, but it was obviously a booty call. I didn't know he was dating at the time, and definitely didn't know he was dating my sister. I let him down firmly and didn't engage because I had no interest. After telling Marie about our hookup, I mentioned this call because I thought she should know he wasn't as faithful while they were dating as she thought he was. But that backfired spectacularly. Marie accused me of making up lies to tear them apart. Christopher denied everything and said I was obsessed with him. Marie sided with him and called me, quote, a desperate home-wrecking whore. Since I deleted my call history, I had no proof. It became a he said, she said situation, and Marie believed him. Now Marie and Christopher are back together, and they're getting married. She showed up at my apartment a few weeks after the fight, crying. Apparently Christopher convinced her that what happened between us was just a meaningless mistake, and that it made him realize how much he wanted to be with her. I tried to explain that he had told me he was falling for me, not to make it seem like he still liked me, just to show her he's lying to her about what he felt for me. But she just got angrier and called me a jealous liar and some other pretty names I won't repeat before storming out. Now I'm completely cut off from family events. My parents say I've caused enough damage, and extended family members are calling me a slut both behind my back and to my face. Every attempt I've made to explain myself has been shut down. So yeah, they're getting married anyway, and here I am, wondering if I just blew up her engagement for nothing. Should I have just stayed quiet? Did I do the right thing, or did I just ruin my relationship with my family for no reason? My sister stole my boyfriend and got pregnant with his child. She humiliated me in front of our family, blaming me for stealing her baby daddy. I completely cut off ties with her. Now, after 7 years, he left her for another girl. Now, she is broke and homeless with no job. My sister says she loves me and misses me and wants to reconnect. She is asking me to let her live in my house after 7 years of no contact. My family is saying to forgive her and help her. AITA for refusing to help my sister? My sister 26F and I 27F have not spoken in 7 years after she got pregnant with my then-boyfriend's child. I had been dating him for 5 years and he had talked about us getting married, which my sister knew. She told me about their affair publicly, and did so in a way that made it seem like she was trying to paint me as some awful person for being with her unborn child's father, instead of acknowledging the fact he was my partner who she slept with. He called it off with her after I broke up with him, and he wanted me back. My sister then wanted to make amends, and I told both of them I never wanted to see their faces again. My sister tried to play the family card and the innocent child, her baby card. Then she tried to play the we have shitty parents card, claiming we needed each other. I told her I didn't need another terrible person in my life, and she was as dead to me as our parents are. Our aunt was someone who did look out for us when she realized we had shitty parents. She wasn't very involved, but was the only family we really had. She hated what happened between us, but never said much about it. My sister and ex got back together, and they had another kid, and stayed together until last year or something. He ended up fucking her over and leaving her without a place to stay. She was also dumb to rely entirely on him. She lost her job during this too. She reached out to our aunt to find out if I could help her. My aunt told me my sister was homeless, jobless, and her kids had nothing going for them. I told her it wasn't my problem. In response, I got a voicemail my aunt forwarded on of my sister crying and apologizing and saying she really loves and misses me, and she hates that she hurt me, and she needs me more than ever, and she just wants her big sister right now because her life's a mess. I told my aunt it wasn't my problem anymore. My aunt dug deep to try and change my mind, and she has told me multiple times I should step up as a sister. I told her I have no plans to help that backstabber. My aunt said we were all each other had for years, and that should count for something. I told her it should have, but didn't. My aunt pointed out, I'm engaged to a wonderful guy, and we're doing well for ourselves and have built a nice life together, and I should reconcile with my sister and do better. I encouraged her to help my backstabber of a sister instead of trying to make me do it, since she never wronged her, and she's actually concerned about her. I told her it would be far more helpful. My aunt told me I sounded like our parents, and I told her if I was like our parents, my sister would never have thought for a single second she could even try to reach out to me. My aunt made it clear she thought less of me for my stance. AITA, my girlfriend wants to be a trad wife. She doesn't cook, clean, or do any chores. She doesn't work and demands me to give her a luxury life as I'm fairly rich. She wants to live as a trophy wife. I told her to contribute around the house or get a job. She told me she'll just leave me for a richer person. AITA if I want to break up. I'll try to be brief. My girlfriend 24F and I 27M have been together for over 2 years. When we first met, she had just started college a bit later than most, and I had recently finished my undergrad. Since the beginning of our relationship, I've been supporting her financially, as I had a job and she didn't. I also had a car, and she didn't. I never had a problem driving to see her, picking her up, or paying for everything during our relationship. I bought her gifts, not because I expected anything in return, but because I loved her and enjoyed making her happy. Things were going fine until she recently got her first car, thanks to help from her uncle and parents. I thought it would be a relief for me that she could now drive to my place instead of me going back and forth, wasting gas. But then, she told me I'd still be doing all the driving because she didn't want to waste miles on her new car. When I told her I found that inconsiderate, she said it shouldn't bother me since I make a good income and can replace my car whenever I need to. That comment really bothered me, but I brushed it off and stopped bringing it up. Things took a bigger turn when she sent me a TikTok of a trad wife, traditional wife video. While I acknowledged that it was aesthetically pleasing, I also pointed out that such a lifestyle isn't realistic for everyone. She responded with, "Women are just marrying the wrong men." That comment made me furious. She then went on to say that if I wasn't willing to pay all her bills and let her stay home without working, even without kids, she was scared for our future. Now, I don't mind the idea of stay-at-home partners. I think being a homemaker is a beautiful role. But being a lazy housewife who does nothing is not appealing to me. For 2 years, I've spoiled her and done everything I could to support her. But now she was lumping me in with the so-called 50-50 men who don't contribute, even though I've been carrying the relationship financially and effort-wise from the beginning. Her words hurt me deeply, making me question if she truly loves me or if she's just looking for someone to fund a lavish lifestyle. Every time I try to talk to her about our future and how we could work as a team, she tells me, "A woman should never pay for anything for a man." That hit me hard because I give out of love and passion to make this relationship work, and it made me feel like she doesn't care about my happiness. It feels like she sees me, and men in general, as mere providers for her ideal of being a trophy wife. After that conversation, I couldn't look at her the same way. What made it worse was that I had to be the one to apologize at the end, despite her being completely unreasonable and unrealistic. She didn't even acknowledge how hurtful her expectations were. She flat out told me that a rich guy would always be the better choice for her. And I know for a fact that her mother reinforces these ideas, telling her that she could find someone better whenever we argue, rather than working things out with me. When I told her that I may never reach that level of wealth, I asked why I should sacrifice years of hard work just so she could live a luxurious life without contributing anything. Her response was essentially, "Why wouldn't you?" That's when I realized that she didn't love me for me, but for what I could provide. While I have a successful family business and a part-time job in a separate field, I'm far from being a millionaire, and I still have goals I want to achieve before considering a trophy wife situation. I don't want someone who sees relationships as purely transactional. I want a partner who supports me, not someone looking for an easy life. Her comments have been incredibly disheartening. She seems to think my success is worthless unless it benefits her entirely. I tried to explain that just because I may need help in the future doesn't mean I won't fully support her, as I've done for the past 2 years. But every time I bring this up, she just brushes it off and accuses me of not being willing to provide for her. It's like I've ended up dating the female version of Andrew Tate. The things she says are so misogynistic, like how women aren't built to work, and that feminism ruined the world, which goes completely against my far-left beliefs. I've always believed a woman's worth is her own, not tied to the man she's with. But for her, none of that matters. She knows who I am, how much I earn, and what I'm capable of, yet she keeps saying it's not enough. For context, she's 2 years into nursing school. She could easily work for my family's business and make decent money, but she's told me she only wants to finish her degree to get it out of the way and doesn't actually care about the career. I have no idea how she's doing in her studies because she rarely talks about them. When we talk about careers, she always brings up wanting to be a house girlfriend. After lengthy discussions, she finally agreed to consider part-time work, but said the money would be hers alone, while I would still pay 100% of the bills and take her out on dates. As for what she contributes, honestly, not much, but I never expected that. I work remotely part-time and help run my family's business, and she's in school. We only see each other on weekends when I pick her up, take her out, and bring her to social gatherings. We don't live together, as I'm paying the mortgage on a duplex with my brother. She's not cooking or cleaning for me, and when she's at my place, I treat her like a guest. We've discussed moving in together, but every time the topic comes up, we clash over finances. Some people have suggested I tell her to find someone who suits her needs, and I actually asked her why she doesn't just date a richer guy if that's what she wants. She didn't take that well, accusing me of trying to break up with her when I was only trying to communicate my feelings. To clarify, I'm not with her just because she's pretty. She is incredibly attractive and has an amazing fashion sense, which we bond over. But that's not enough to sustain a relationship. Her looks aren't why I've been with her for over 2 years. It's just incredibly disheartening that she seems to think a relationship should only revolve around a pretty face and a big wallet. I plan to talk to her about this again tonight, but I'm really at a loss right now. My daughter abandoned her child and chose her boyfriends and career for the past 16 years. Now she suddenly wants to be a good mom and want to take away my granddaughter to live with her. My granddaughter hates her mom and wants to live with me. My daughter is accusing me of poisoning her daughter's mind and getting in the way of their happiness. I've 55F been raising my granddaughter Emma 16F for the past 16 years, as my daughter Sarah 34F was never truly involved in parenting her. Emma is an incredible young woman, and I've been so proud of her growth. To give you some background, Sarah got pregnant during her first year of college at 18. She decided to keep the baby, and since she was still living with me, I naturally stepped in to help. However, Sarah wasn't much of a mother from the start. Despite my advice to take time off, Sarah returned to college a week after giving birth and then back to work shortly after. She made sure to pump milk so I could bottle feed Emma, but she rarely got up during the night for feedings or changings, so I did it all. While Sarah focused on her school and job, Emma stayed with me during the day. Sarah would only take care of Emma for a couple of hours in the evenings before going to bed. When Emma turned 2, Sarah and her boyfriend moved into a small apartment near her college, and I thought my time raising Emma would end. But within a few weeks, Sarah asked if I could watch Emma during the weekdays, leaving her to spend weekends with her parents. This arrangement continued until Emma turned 6. That's when Sarah moved back in with me, attempting to play a more active role in Emma's life, but it quickly became clear that she wasn't prepared for the task. She didn't respect the routines Emma and I had developed, and she didn't understand Emma's needs. Sarah knew very little about Emma's interests or dislikes, and had no clue how to manage raising a child. After a few months, she reverted to her old ways, and I once again became Emma's primary caregiver. At age 8, Sarah moved out again with a new boyfriend, this time leaving Emma with me full-time, only picking her up for occasional weekends and sleepovers. For the next 5 years, Emma lived with me, seeing her mother just once in a while. When Emma was 13, Sarah got a regular 9-to-5 job and began picking Emma up after school and sports, spending evenings and weekends with her. Then, a year ago, Sarah moved into a home near an elite private school for girls and announced during a family dinner that she was ready to take Emma back and enroll her in the school. During that dinner, Sarah made this announcement in front of our entire family, my sons, daughters-in-law, and grandchildren, without discussing it with me first. She claimed it was all possible thanks to my help, and said Emma would be living with her full-time now. I asked Sarah if we could speak privately, but she refused, so I told her in front of everyone that it wasn't a good idea and would likely hurt Emma. Emma has grown up in my home her entire life, and taking her away from me would be damaging. Sarah fired back, saying that I had no right to tell her what's best for Emma because she's her mother. I responded by pointing out that being a mother doesn't mean she raised Emma. Sarah left in a huff and later called me, accusing me of undermining her role as a parent and overstepping my boundaries. My sons agree with me, but suggested I could have been more sensitive in how I addressed the situation. But I don't feel like Sarah deserves that. She chose her career over raising her daughter. No one forced her to keep the baby or pursue her job. And even when she had the time, she didn't put much effort into connecting with Emma. Sarah has never bonded with Emma like a parent should, and Emma has spent years trying to connect with her mother with little success. Sarah doesn't know basic things about Emma, and instead of seeing her as a young adult, she still treats her like a small child. I raised Emma like one of my own children, providing her with stability and love. For Sarah to now swoop in 16 years later and think she knows what's best is beyond unfair. Uprooting Emma from the only home she's known, away from her school, friends, and the person who's raised her, would be devastating. Now Sarah is furious with me and claims I've turned Emma against her because Emma refuses to live with her. For clarity, Sarah was never involved in drugs or anything like that. She's always been focused on her career. I never held her decisions over her head or forced her to move in or out. I've always stepped aside when she wanted to be more involved, and I've never badmouthed her to Emma. However, Emma has always been hurt by Sarah's lack of effort to be in her life. Emma's father is out of the picture, and my husband passed away, leaving me to handle everything alone. I'm here for advice because I'm at a loss and don't know what to do anymore. This is my first post, so forgive any errors. Edit. Emma has told both her family and private therapist that she doesn't consider Sarah her mother and doesn't want that type of relationship. She's been dealing with these feelings for years, wondering why her mom doesn't seem to want her. Sarah's recent attempts to bond haven't changed anything, and Emma doesn't willingly spend much time with her. Edit 2. There's no legal arrangement regarding Emma's custody. Sarah has never paid child support, and we've always gone with what's convenient for her. Emma's feelings weren't initially mentioned, because if she had wanted to go with her mother, I wouldn't have posted this. She would have just left. I resigned and cost my company $5 million, and it is almost going bankrupt. Have fun promoting a lazy, toxic female instead of me, because she sweet talks and flirts with the higher-ups. Before reading. I basically don't know how to use this platform. I'm sorry in advance. Back to the story. I've been with my company as a graphic designer in the marketing department for about 3 to 4 years. When I started, it was just 3 of us in the team, including a team lead I admired deeply. Although we were a small group, I loved the creative challenges and working closely with my team. As the team grew, I quickly stood out as one of the most dedicated and efficient designers. I trained every new hire, led projects, delivered presentations, and organized workshops for our team. Over time, I took on the kind of responsibilities you'd expect of a senior designer and poured everything into each project. Then things started to change. My team lead left, meaning even more responsibility landed on my plate, as we went over a year without a replacement. It felt like a golden opportunity to show that I was ready for the senior designer role. During my annual review, I was told I was on track, and if I kept up the hard work, I'd be promoted after another year. But then I saw something that stopped me cold. A newer coworker, a lazy, toxic type, had been promoted to senior designer. She joined the team well after me, did the absolute bare minimum, and constantly dumped her unfinished projects on me because I was fast. I was floored. She had no grasp of design strategy, teamwork, or even basic collaboration. She sweet-talked the higher-ups, took credit for things she didn't do, and always passed her work on to the rest of us. It felt like a slap in the face. What really got to me was seeing her act as if she was in charge, setting team guidelines she barely followed herself. Stakeholders couldn't stand her and repeatedly asked me to handle their projects instead. Finally, after months of frustration, we got a new team lead, and I seized the chance to fight for the promotion I'd been promised. I presented all my successes, glowing feedback from coworkers, and a portfolio of senior-level work. The team lead was impressed, and it felt like my dedication was finally acknowledged. Not long after, this same coworker bungled a major project, which not only disrupted my workflow, but also reflected poorly on me because she'd involved me to cover her tracks. I fixed her mistakes, but instead of gratitude, she stormed into the office accusing me of embarrassing her. I explained that I was simply following project guidelines, which she had ignored. Our team lead stepped in and agreed I was right, but he still coddled her to avoid conflict. When my next annual review arrived, I clung to a shred of hope. But once again, I was dismissed with a mediocre 3-star rating out of 5 and told to be more present, even compared to my lazy coworker, with advice to emulate her social presence. I was stunned. I'd been the one holding the team together, training new hires, checking everyone's work, and fixing her mistakes. This was my reward? I refused to sign the review papers, letting my team lead know I was done proving myself. I told him if he thought she was senior material, she could do the work herself. No more senior tasks from me, no more training, and no more rescuing her projects. He panicked, offering me the promotion in 6 months, but I was done. 2 weeks later, I accepted a higher-paying job and handed in my notice. My manager was shocked, pleading with me to stay, but nothing he said could make up for the years of disrespect. As I prepared to leave, I realized I had no obligation to write down my work processes or pass on the knowledge I'd accumulated. If I wasn't senior enough to earn the title, why should I act like one? Almost 60% of our work systems, design assets, and templates were things I'd created from scratch. I knew it would take months for them to sort through the gaps I'd leave. My team leader realized this quickly, showing up at my desk daily with desperate pleas for a few guidelines, or just one walkthrough. Each time I reminded him he'd refused my promotion, so my expertise was no longer his to request. Walking out that final day felt like freedom. Update. First off, thank you all for your support and stories. It's a relief to know others have gone through similar experiences. This post is for anyone who needs that final push to realize their worth. Some people doubted my talent or said my story sounded too good to be true. Well, modesty aside, after years of putting in the work, I've learned to own my worth. We all have a breaking point, and this was mine. A wake-up call that I deserved better. Now for the aftermath. My project coordinator, also a close friend, filled me in. They tried to get my lazy ex-coworker to pick up the slack, but nothing changed. They had to split my workload between 3 or 4 junior designers, merging 2 teams to handle the workload, which sparked frustration. Staff weren't happy, and they even lost several key clients who saw the drop in quality. They struggled to replace lost work files, costing thousands in time and effort. As weeks went by, the fallout continued. They lost multiple major clients who were frustrated with the new workflow. In total, their losses hit around $5 million over a few months. With clients leaving and the lazy coworker still passing her work to others, it wasn't just employees who were frustrated. Upper management was furious. Eventually, people started leaving left and right, making the workload unbearable. My friend says they're hemorrhaging clients, and the company's now on the brink of bankruptcy. Looking back, I feel validated knowing my hard work was valued somewhere else. I'm now at a job that appreciates me, working with my old team lead in a place where titles don't divide us. We're all equal, and my work speaks for itself. My husband of 15 years got his affair partner pregnant. He wants to keep the baby, and I'm infertile and can't have babies. I told him to get the affair child aborted if he wanted to stay together with me. AITA. 2 months ago, my husband of 15 years confessed he'd been having an affair for a year with a woman he'd met through a mutual friend. My world was shattered. He was full of remorse, ashamed, and begged for forgiveness. After a painful week of reflection, I agreed to reconcile, though it was far from easy. He went no contact with the affair partner immediately, blocking her everywhere. Despite his commitment, I struggled with the betrayal, making every step in reconciliation feel like an uphill battle. Last week, however, his affair partner reached out again. She created a new email account after being blocked to inform him that she was pregnant with his child. My husband showed me the email, expressing his intention to find out if she was telling the truth or just trying to lure him back. He unblocked her to contact her, and she quickly sent him proof, screenshots of her blood work, and a sonogram. My heart broke all over again. The news was particularly devastating because my husband and I had wanted children ourselves, but after exhausting all options, from medications to IVF, we ultimately had to face the fact that it wouldn't happen for us. And now, hearing that he had fathered a child through this betrayal felt like a cruel twist of fate. She told him she'd only keep the baby if he planned to be involved. When he admitted he didn't want her to terminate because it might be his only shot at being a father, I felt yet another layer of betrayal and kicked him out of the house. I made it clear that while I was still willing to try reconciliation, I could never accept co-parenting his child with her. That would mean having her in my life forever, which would feel like an ongoing punishment. But he believes it's unfair for me to force him into choosing between me and his child. So, AITA, Edit. I've been reading through comments and want to clarify a few things. Although his betrayal cut deeply, I genuinely believed that with effort and dedication, we could save our marriage because he had shown genuine remorse. However, some comments hit home. If he'd truly chosen me and our marriage, he wouldn't even be considering keeping this child. It hurts to realize he's entertaining the idea of fatherhood with his affair partner, putting his desire to be a parent above our marriage vows. I understand this may be a controversial viewpoint, but to me, this is a fetus, not yet a child. What happens to it isn't my concern. But what's clear to me now is that if he's contemplating fathering a child with her, he's choosing her over the commitment he made to me. That's why I've decided I won't make him choose, because I'm stepping out of the picture and moving forward with a separation and divorce. Edit 2. Am I missing something here? I was cheated on, I forgave him, then I found out he fathered a child with the other woman, and now I'm being called heartless? Yes, it's a fetus now. If she has the child, of course he should step up and be involved, but by that point, I won't be here. Right now, though, it isn't a born child. What am I missing? My girlfriend is forcing me to marry her and have kids, even though I clearly told her no to marriage 4 years ago. I think she is after my money, as I'm very rich. I don't think prenup will help me. Reddit, what other options do I have? My girlfriend 32F and I 32M have been together for 4 years. Early on, I was upfront with her that marriage wasn't in my plans because I don't see any clear benefits in it for me. She seemed to accept this at the time. For context, I work as a software engineer for a well-paying hedge fund, so I'm financially comfortable. My girlfriend is a potter, which doesn't bring in much income, but it's her passion, and it genuinely makes me happy to see her doing what she loves. However, I can't ignore that if we got married and things went south, it could potentially ruin me financially. Last week we celebrated our anniversary, but the next morning, she seemed down. When I asked her about it, she admitted she'd been hoping I would propose. I was a bit taken aback, reminding her that I'd been clear about my feelings on marriage from the start. She responded by saying that marriage wasn't a requirement for her, but part of her had hoped that my love for her would eventually change my mind. To avoid letting this issue build up and cause resentment, I decided we should talk it out. I asked her to explain how marriage would benefit me. She started with things like, it's a sign of commitment, but I countered that our 4-year relationship is itself a commitment. She also brought up security, but when I asked her, security for who? Her response sounded more like it would secure her position. I feel more secure remaining unmarried, as that allows for a clean break if necessary. No asset division, no alimony, no court battles. I pointed out that marriage might even give her an incentive to leave since she could walk away with a share of everything I've worked for. Another reason she mentioned was having security if we had kids. From the start, we agreed that we weren't focused on having kids. If it happened, it happened. I explained that my commitment to fatherhood would remain regardless of our marital status. Plus, she plans on returning to work after maternity leave, so her career wouldn't be heavily impacted. And before anyone asks, we have cleaners to manage household tasks, and we split cooking, so housework is already balanced. If we did have a child, I'd hire a full-time nanny when she returned to work. She did raise valid points around things like medical power of attorney and tax benefits, but I explained that medical power of attorney could be assigned through other legal avenues, and the tax impact would be minimal in my case, not enough to justify the risks of marriage. By the end of our talk, I felt I'd made it clear there weren't significant benefits to marriage from my perspective. She seemed to understand but was still clearly bothered. As an additional note, we don't live in a place that recognizes common law marriage. TLDR, AITA. For having my girlfriend break down the benefits of marriage and explaining why I still see no upside in it. Edit. I've seen several people mention prenups, so I'll address that here. Prenups aren't the ironclad protection people think they are. Courts regularly throw out prenups deemed unfair. The reality is, the most foolproof prenup is simply not getting married in the first place.